There's no way he would have left you there. He would have walked through fire to come and get you. He was not perfect by any means, but he would not have left you there. To find out he had a son, he would have gone and got me. And whether he would or wouldn't have, the fact that I got robbed, never got to meet him or know him or shake his hand, it's just too hard.
Who am I?
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 This is Who Am I, Really? A podcast about adoptees that have located and connected with their biological family members. I'm Damon Davis, and on today's show, you're going to meet Forrest, whose life began in chaos, abuse, and danger at home and in the foster care system. Forrest says he joined the military to make an honorable exit from this life and shares the moment he found his calling as a tattoo artist to his brothers in Iraq. But when Forrest decided to get his passport, the process revealed that he had been adopted by a devious woman who had taken him in but had never told him her plans. Today, he has transformed his life into one of purpose and healing. This is Forrest's journey. Forrest's early years were marked by instability. When he was young, his mother, a talented musician who had spent time in New York and Los Angeles, fled New York and a bad relationship, putting Forrest, his brother, and herself on a bus to California. Their family was homeless when they first arrived, living in different places until his mother married Forrest's stepfather and they had another child. Forrest was part of a blended family. But what Forrest didn't expect was how deeply the emotional scars of those years would shape him. There was love, but also pain. Pain he didn't yet know how to name.
I loved my mom a lot, and I loved my brother, but I didn't really understand what they were doing to me at the time. I just knew that I had a lot of rage, and I didn't like to speak, and I wanted to be alone a lot. I used to read books in the attic of our garage and take long bicycle rides, and I just wanted to be away from my family as much as possible because they were both my stepdad as well. There was a lot of mental health issues in our home, abuse, neglect, poverty, not always a lot of food security, not a lot of physical safety. My older brother sexually assaulted me from the time I can remember up until I was 10 years old and was able to be big enough to stop him. And I stayed in that home until I think I was 11 or 12 when Child Protective Services put me in foster care.
Wow. So you were removed from the home and placed in foster care. And at 10 or 11, and at this time that you were transitioned out of the home into foster care, your mother had already married this next guy. You're
And he
living
left.
with this whole blended family, and all this is
Yeah.
happening to you at that time.
Yeah.
Wow. Gotcha. So when you said you used the words, I didn't know what they were doing to me, this is what you were referring to. You were too young to realize that you were being abused. This was your normal. So you
Yeah.
didn't know that it was abnormal for a child to be reared in this way.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And
And
it took a lot of years to really unpack that and figure it out.
Yeah.
Sometimes, people from shattered backgrounds, it takes them a little while to put the pieces together and really put together what happened in a cohesive story.
Yeah, I can imagine. So at what age are you in foster care then? You said at 10 or
At 11, 12,
Gotcha.
I entered care and I went to a friend, I guess. I was friends with these girls we met at the pool. There was like a public pool in Oxnard that you could pay like 50 cents to go and go swimming. Me and my older brother met these two girls and they invited us to go to their aunt's house. And so I started hanging out at the aunt's house all the time because there was always food. You could stay up late. You could smoke weed and drink, watch horror movies. There was always a bunch of kids there. And it was kind of a do whatever you want type of environment. And that woman, their auntie, called Child Protective Services on my mom and got me placed with her. And I was very happy to have a feeling of being rescued. But unfortunately, oftentimes children who are vulnerable in abusive homes can be open to further exploitation by predators. And that woman was a predator. And so I ended up getting placed there. He had, since I was placed there, Child Protective Services had to come and do visits. There were mandatory visits and then just random drop-bys. And when I started to get, let's see, I was maybe 14 or 15, she convinced her husband to adopt me, to make me a permanent member of the family. In hindsight, it was to stop the Child Protective Service visits and have more freedom to smoke weed and continue to go back into selling drugs and other things that she was doing without concern that the
Somebody
authorities would show up.
dropping by, checking in
Yeah,
on her, right? You
yeah,
can't do various things if some level of authority is frequently checking in on one person in the home.
yeah.
So she was locking in your part of their family to get the authorities out of there so she could
Mhm.
continue to do the things that she was doing that were not correct, that were unlawful.
Yeah.
Wow, this is wild. So is it my understanding that she called CPS on your mom? You were transitioned into foster care because of that call, and then she, quote unquote, rescued you from foster care into her home.
Yes.
I got you.
Yes. And I did do a little bit of time in some group homes and a few other foster homes, but I kept running away to go back to her because I felt a level of safety and somebody cared about me. And on top of that, there was a nicotine addiction as well, where she gave me cigarettes.
Wow.
And I mean, remembering this, man, like how sinister, she would only give me like one cigarette for every hour that I was away from her, so
Yeah.
that I would always need to go back to her to get cigarettes. And
Created an addiction to her.
yeah, yeah,
Wow, that is really sinister. What a powerful word. That is so manipulative and awful. That's crazy. And the other children in the home, did you get the sense that some were hers, some were others that it sounds like,
she had
groomed and cultivated to be part of this
she had
this
2 daughters, and she used them to bring boys over. She always encouraged them to have boyfriends or bring boys, and, yeah, they didn't again, looking at it from a 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old perspective, I thought they had it made because they had their own room and 2 parents and a
Yeah.
college fund, and, looking back at it, what they went through was absolutely horrific, more because of the narcissistic, psychopathic way that my foster mother, their mom, operated.
As Forrest reached his teenage years, the weight of his secrets became unbearable. A toxic foster home, shame, and the basic human desire to connect, to have friends, to date, to just be a kid, put him at odds with his abuser. Then she made a threat that changed everything. It was the moment Forrest decided he had to leave, even if it meant being on his own at 16 years old.
So I got into high school and I began to want to have friends and like a girlfriend and go with the guys to the drive-in on a Friday night. And that started to cause friction between myself and my foster mom. And I was living with this thing, this big secret. And it was terrifying to me that somebody would find out what was going on. And I wanted to start to be away from her more. And like any kid wants to do things on their own and become and develop independence. And
Yeah, explore your
she was,
identity.
yeah, she was very combative to that. So at one point, she took me for a drive in her minivan and she was driving very fast and running red lights. And she told me that she was going to drive us off of Point Mugu Rock and essentially like a murder suicide was going to happen. And I reached over and stomped my foot on the brakes of her car. I put the car in park and then I took the keys and I threw them out into a strawberry field and I ran. And that night, I had spent the night at Jack in the Box on a bench.
The fast food
Was-
restaurant.
And I slept there my first night. And then in the morning, I walked back over to where my foster home was and waited for her to leave and her husband to leave. And I went in and told my little foster sister I needed to get my clothes and stuff, that I was leaving. And I packed a duffel bag and began my life on my own. I was 16.
16 years old, on your own, on the street.
I didn't sleep outside too many times. I had some friends that I made in high school, and their parents were very kind. And I kind of couch surfed. I stayed with my friend James quite a bit. I don't want to. Sometimes people who have been through traumatic experiences feel the need to like exaggerate them to make them worse than they were. It wasn't fun, and I felt very sad, and that I had no future and no real help. Like my friends' parents would buy me McDonald's if I was really hungry, or let me sit at the dinner table with them. And I had started working full time at Sears. I worked from 5 a.m. until 2 p.m. stocking. For those of you that don't know, Sears was like the better old version of Walmart, a department store. And I drank a lot. I had a friend who was over 21 and would buy us beer. So I would work, get drunk, and then find a place to go to sleep, and then get up and work and get drunk and find a place to sleep.
Yeah, wow. I couldn't help thinking as you were describing, you say people sometimes have a desire to exaggerate their circumstances, and it doesn't seem like most people do because they don't need to. The situation is already jacked up as it is. There's no need to exaggerate it. It's horrible, right? But
Yeah.
as you said, you indicated that you didn't feel you had a real solution is the words that came to my mind from when you were saying it. I got to sit at the dinner table with them sometimes, but it wasn't a permanent seat. And they would buy you meals, but it was McDonald's. It wasn't the home cooked meal that a child with a foundation would get. And I couldn't help thinking of this image of when you're really bleeding, you've got a deep laceration and somebody puts a Band-Aid on it. That's not going to do it. You need stitches. You need something that's going to bring it all together and make it heal. You put a Band-Aid on, it's just going to bleed right out. And that's what I heard when you said that, is like you had a bunch of Band-Aids, but not
I
a
did.
real solution to stitch everything together for you.
But I also had inability to trust anyone. So Mrs. Lopez, my friend David's mom, wanted me to go live with them and do the full treatment, right? Sit at the dinner table every night, go back to school. But I was already a full-blown alcoholic, and I didn't want to go to school. I didn't want to give up what I perceived as my own power by submitting to a family. And again, this is speaking as a 47-year-old man, understanding I didn't know why at the time, but I didn't want to give up my own autonomy because I couldn't trust anyone.
Exactly. At 47, you can see that. But back then, it totally makes sense. You've been in one family, you've been abused, neglect, all of the things, food insecure, all the stuff. You've been magnetized to this other family, groomed to come over there and be one of them, be part of this sort of cult group of, it sounds like, drug abusers and all kinds of other abuse, and created an addiction. Like, why would you ever trust another family if the two families that you've been a part of so far have been nothing but unhealthy circumstances? It totally makes sense that a kid at 16, 17, 18 would just be like, nah, I'm good. I don't need family. If this is what it means,
Yeah.
I'm not trying to do that family thing at all.
Yeah.
At 16 years old, Forrest was completely on his own. No family, no legal guardian, just a duffel bag and the streets. But even in that chaos, he found moments of human kindness, friends, parents who offered him dinner, a couch, or just a place to feel normal. Still, what he really needed wasn't scraps of comfort. It was a way to start over. Just when Forrest had almost disappeared into the margins, his biological mother reappeared. She offered him a new path, education, stability, and a second chance. She had even been working on herself and wanted Forrest to reunite with her. But healing doesn't happen overnight. And for someone who's been through as much as Forrest had, even a second chance can feel like another trap that might not work out.
one day I was walking out of work and my biological mom pulled up and said she'd been looking for me. She jumped out of the car and hugged me. I was 17 and a half. I weighed 105 pounds. I was 6'1", just emaciated and sick. And she said that she wanted me to go live with her in Palmdale and that she had changed and things had changed. And she was doing really well. In the time that I've been gone, she went back to school and became a teacher. And a couple of days later, got in the car with her and drove to Palmdale. And I started going back to high school. She said it would be a good idea for me to go to high school just to feel normal, even if I didn't need the diploma. There was no hope of me graduating anyways, because I'd stopped going, or the beginning of my sophomore year, I stopped going to school. But she said that it would be something good for me to do, and then that I could start college. And I stayed there, I think maybe for 5 or 6 months. And then she told me that it wasn't working out, that I had to leave. And I joined the Navy from there.
The woman who pulls up is the woman whom you left New York and came to Southern California with.
Yeah.
That's your biological mother. True biological mother?
True biological mother.
Wow. Unreal. So then you live with her for several months. It's not working out. And
Yeah.
she asks you to leave. Where do you go?
Well, she said I didn't need to leave right away. So she suggested the military. So I called a recruiter and started the process to join. And I joined the Navy on October 25th of 1995. And the best decision I ever made. It was the best thing I could have done considering circumstances, because once I entered the Navy, even though it took some time, I started with the basics, like learning how to brush my teeth and fold my clothes and how to have proper hygiene, how to talk to people, how to develop physical strength and confidence, team building. I still didn't really say a lot of words unless I needed to speak. It took some time for me to feel confident as a human being, to be able to speak and communicate with a level of vulnerability to other people. That was as a direct result of me joining the Navy. I got in a little bit of trouble for punching a cop while I was drunk. I was still heavily addicted to alcohol, and I entered treatment on my old sobriety date was June 19th, 6/19/19. And that's where my journey to healing and recovery began. And it's been a slow road. And, I still have things that I work on a daily basis and new realizations that I have. But that was the beginning of me having a chance to survive.
That's amazing. The military gave Forrest something he had never truly known: structure, purpose, and brotherhood. And when he hit another low point, it was that same brotherhood that lifted him up, funding his first tattoo kit in Iraq. What he didn't expect was that tattooing would become more than a skill. It became a lifeline and a way to express pain, focus his mind, and reclaim his body after years of violation.
I was in for 5 years, and then I had gotten out and started going to college, and I had a relapse and my life fell apart. And a couple devastating things happened. And so I decided to go back into the military. So I'd gotten out in 98, went back in 2000, and I did 2 more years. And I wanted to go to Iraq to kind of just die in combat and feel like my life meant something. Instead, I was able to harden relationships, brotherhood, camaraderie, honor, and the fear of combat.
I was wondering about this very piece right here. You said that you got out of the military after 5 years. You were on your own, and it sounds like had a series of setbacks, and then decided to go back to the military. What was it about being in the military that attracted you to re-enlist?
Well, there was a possibility of an honorable death instead of suicide, because by that time I felt that my life was cursed. I didn't understand childhood programming and how the subconscious is programmed up to 80% by the time we're 8 years old. Well, my life continued to be ugly and have ugly things happen. So I thought that if I could just go back in and die in a way that is honorable, saving or helping somebody else. I was a hospital corpsman in the United States Navy, and the hospital corps is a very highly regarded and decorated part of our military. So when I worked at Balboa Hospital, and every time I went up and down the elevators or to the area called the quarter deck, there is a long line of framed photographs that are Medal of Honor recipients that were hospital corpsmen. And I had read a lot of those stories and they gave me chills just seeing the brotherly love and the sacrifice and the courage that those men displayed. And I thought if I couldn't have a good life, that maybe I could have a good death and possibly be like one of those men that I saw on the wall at Balboa Hospital.
Gave you something to aspire to in the
Yes.
absence of, for lack of better words, purpose outside of the military. You felt like being in the military and being a hospital corpsman and not having much to look forward to when you left, you may as well die in the military and die honorably as those people had done. I see.
Yes.
Really interesting. Wow. So you, how long did you stay in the military the second time? And then you went to college and what happened?
Well, I was in college after the first time. And then during the second time, I still had plans to go to school after. But while I was in Iraq, all the boys pitched in and bought me today's equivalent of ten or $11,000 worth of tattoo equipment.
Wow.
And I began tattooing my brother's a Lima Company 324 reservists out of the Tri-Cities area of Tennessee. And when I did my first tattoo, I had never, I mean, I always loved to read and draw and create art, be immersed in story. But when I did my first tattoo, there was such a level of concentration that was required. And I felt everything I was doing was so paramount, important, like purpose, crystal clear in that moment where the needle touches skin, that it actually made all the ugly stuff go away, all the
Huh.
voices in my head and negative feelings and thoughts. And of course, it came back after I was done with the tattoo. I was hooked from the first tattoo I ever did. I did the word strength down the back of Lance Corporal Chad Beverly's leg
Really?
on July 6th of the year 2000. And since then, I haven't looked back and I've been tattooing ever since. I love tattooing.
Is that right? How did
And
this happen though? You said you used to draw.
I
You
love
used
to
to love
draw.
to draw and stuff like that. But how did your boys make the leap to, we got to get that guy some tat gear?
Well, one of the guys, he asked me to draw a picture of some statue or some general. I don't remember what it was. It was some drawing he asked me to do. And he was our company gunnery sergeant. And so he kind of had a reach with a lot of people. A lot of people came in contact with him and everybody liked the drawing that I drew. And then he decided that maybe he should buy tattoo equipment and I would tattoo the guys and then I would give him half. And then when he found out how much it cost, he said, never mind. But by that time, an infantry unit in theater and in combat, it is like one person. It's really, it's a really intense feeling to be a part of a group like that is very capable, very lethal, very adaptable. And so by the time the word got around that the company Gunny didn't want to buy the tattoo equipment, the money was already going around the company. And by the time it came back around again, there was enough to buy it. It was
Huh?
really fast in less than 2 hours.
Really? Oh my gosh. I thought you were talking like days.
Oh.
Incredible.
It happened very rapidly.
Oh,
And
wow.
our commanding officer was very rebellious and kind of a interesting guy. So he let it happen. The chances of that happening are very slim, very slim. It breaks at least at least 30 or 40 Marine Corps regulations to tattoo in a combat zone.
Yeah. I
But
mean, it doesn't sound like the kind of thing that I've never heard a story of this before. It's crazy.
but the combination of people being of a reservist kind of good old boy mentality, let's just make this happen, and their belief in me, it happened.
I was just getting ready to ask you about that because you've gone your whole life up until your military enlistment with people taking advantage of you and using you. And then you get to the military where they force you to both become a man and become your own person as part of this larger unit. As you've said, you move as one. And I'm just kind of curious to know what it felt like for you to have this group of people around you be so supportive that they saw something in you, said, we're going to buy you the tools to bring out this skill that you have. How did that feel to have people care about you in that way?
I can't put it in words. I mean, I'm gonna go see them in October. We're doing our 20-year reunion, and I go out to Tennessee, and I tattoo those guys every year. They're my brothers. I love them. I would do anything for them, and feel very grateful for that experience and for those individuals within that terrific organization.
Yeah, it's amazing. So during this time of your military enlistment, what was your relationship like with your mother?
We still talked here and there. I I didn't stop talking to her until I found out about my father. Basically, until I really truly remembered everything. I sort of believed that stuff happened, but I didn't think about it a lot, and I worked my way around it, and I avoided it. I avoided my childhood. I avoided thoughts, feelings, talking about it. Didn't want to speak about it with anybody or therapists or counselors. And going to the war gave me a pretty good excuse to have PTSD and traumatic events, and I could just work on those things
That's
instead
really
of,
interesting.
yeah,
You went further to put another level of PTSD on top of the one that you didn't want to deal with. Is that
yeah,
roughly right?
yeah.
Wow.
But fortunately, in dealing with that PTSD and the knowledge and wisdom and really love that people in the veteran community helped me learn how to save myself and learn how to face all of those things.
That's amazing. Wow. Really
So,
fascinating.
and it was layers. There was never any one, because my life's good today, man. We've been talking about kind of really some traumatic events and
Sure.
stuff that was really awful. And of course, I still have bad dreams. I have bad days. I'm not polished and shiny and perfect, but considering where I come from, my life's good today.
Forrest's friend convinced him to take a trip to Iceland, but to do so, he needed a passport. Of course, to get that official document, one needs another proof of who they are in the form of their birth certificate. But Forrest couldn't find his. He had set out on his own when he separated from his family, so he had to reach back to the state of New York, all the way back to his beginning, to try to retrieve that all-important document. What followed was a brand new search, one that would unravel even more of his existence.
When I called New York's Department of Public Health, they told me that Vital Check had taken over. It's a private company
Okay.
who does, like, I guess it's one of those background check companies. They took over the birth certificate department. So I contacted them and they said, "Oh, we're sorry, we don't have a birth certificate for you." And I was a little irritated. Here I'm dealing with a private company that lost my birth certificate, right? In my mind. And so I'm upset and I'm calling and talking to a manager or a supervisor. And finally, this lady, I'm not going to say the name. I changed the names in my public story just to protect my foster sisters. But she says, "Does this name mean anything to you?" And I was driving in my car, and mind you, I've done a lot of work, man. Like I've already done a lot of counseling. I've been working on this war stuff. I've worked on the childhood stuff somewhat. Like I went to this group and learned that other soldiers, warriors had bad childhoods, but it still didn't really like, I could always kind of, hey, it wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad. And when the woman on the phone asked me if, does the name blank mean anything to you? It was right there in front of me in black and white. That did happen. There, there's very strong evidence that things weren't normal and okay. And when I heard her say that name, I started screaming at her, "That's not my name. That's not my name. That's not my name." And I had to pull over, almost crash my car. I'm screaming at this lady and sobbing, not, I mean, that's not my name. That's not my name. And I decided to start writing at that point to try to put it together, to put together what happened so that I could fully understand what happened to me and then the aftermath and how am I still here and thriving and alive and not drinking, not using, like not causing harm to other people.
Yeah.
How did that happen? And so I wrote my story on paper. And
So let me ask you, this private company social worker person has called out a name over the phone, and this is a name that you were formerly known as?
yeah, my foster mom adopted me to stop CPS visits. So that was her last name. And
Gotcha.
I'd never
So
used that name.
records that New York had were a reflection of your birth mother's CPS situation and the subsequent adoption by this nefarious
Yes.
foster mother and her husband, who were trying to bring you into their family and their cult, for lack of better words.
Yes.
So you have been through your teenage years, twice enlisted in the military, gotten out, and you're now looking for your birth record to try to just get a passport so you can travel. And in the record that have traveled back to New York, you're living somewhere else. In those records is the change of name from when you were adopted from foster care into this ugly
Yes.
family. Wow. And that was super triggering for you, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, it was.
Did it bring back both the foster family stuff and your childhood? Is that why it was so?
Yeah, it made it real. It
Yeah,
just made it real. That really did happen. I'm not imagining. I'm not.
I can't run from it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right
And there's
there.
more militaries that are going to put more trauma on top of this shit happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Go ahead.
you want to know how I got my birth certificate back?
Yeah, please.
So, in the process of writing Angel Blue, I had to do something called a corroboration and clearance with an attorney. And basically, what the attorney does is looks for any way that you, especially in memoir writing like this, there's not a lot of people that want to write a memoir like this, where it talks about child abuse and neglect, especially when the perpetrators are still alive. And so they told me, well, you need to track down these records that you were in foster care. You need to give us records of your military experience. We need documents to support all this stuff. And so I'll make this very long story short because I went through a congressman, a senator, a city council person, and through a bunch of different departments in Ventura County. But the only thing I had found was something on a library card that said who my foster parents were at my junior high. That was like the only record I could find because in California, child protective service agencies are not required to keep any documents beyond 7 years of the person leaving. So they just destroy the documents, like it's
Yeah.
never there. And I ended up talking to the officer of the day at Child Protective Services in Ventura County, who used to be a special crimes police officer. And she drove her car to a place that's no shit called Iron Mountain. So she
Wow.
drove down to Iron Mountain, dug through the boxes, and she found 3 boxes of my records way in the back under the cobwebs and just a mess. And she took them home to her house. She laid them all out on her floor, redacted any names she needed to redact, put them all in order, got rid of all the duplicates. It was just a mess. There was like a sticky note that said, "This case is getting passed around like a hot potato. It's your turn." And she called me and she was crying. And she said, "I have everything for you. I'm going to ship it all to you. I'm so sorry that we failed you." And I told her, and just thank you so much for finding this. I don't even have a birth certificate that proved who I am. And she said, "Well, you have it now, honey. Like, I'm not supposed to give you back your original birth certificate, but I went ahead and put that in there for you." So,
Oh my gosh,
uh,
really? That's amazing.
just, there's proof. But I said
Yeah.
to the lawyer. I mean, there was hundreds of pages of documents. It was like the mother load. So,
Unbelievable. Both the kindness and dedication of her to
yeah,
go down there and go into that dusty, probably gross back part of that room and find those boxes, let alone bring them back to her place, dig through them and find what you needed and deliver it and go outside the bounds of what was supposed to be done and actually give you your OBC is pretty awesome.
yeah.
Dang, that's really cool. Wow. What did you see when you got your OBC, your original birth certificate back, and you're looking at your real name? Pause. You enlisted under the other name, or what name did you enlist under?
Forrest Lang,
Your
my
original.
name. Yeah,
Gotcha.
because
That's what I
Vital Check hadn't taken over yet. That adoption never made it to New York. I don't know. Somebody forgot to file a piece of paper or something. It just never went
thought.
anywhere, and I never used it. So,
So what was it like to actually be holding this document that says who you are definitively?
I mean, it felt pretty good. It felt
Yeah.
pretty good.
Yeah. So did you make the trip to Iceland?
I did. Yeah, I've gone. Let's see. I was 41 or so when that happened. I was 47 now, so I've gone like 6 times to Iceland
Mm,
over a year. Do a bunch,
yeah.
bunch of hanging out, motorcycle riding, and do some
That's awesome.
shopping. Yeah,
That's really cool.
yeah, it's pretty cool.
How did you talk about this with your birth mother? You're 42, you said. You're trying to make this trip. You're trying to go get a passport to make these overseas trips. You've now gotten this whole side mission to try to get this OBC so you can even do this. And in the course of doing so, you are reminded of the trauma that happened in her house and in subsequent house. How did you even talk about this with your birth mother?
I didn't really want to engage with her. The more I started to lean in to what happened, the less I wanted to be near her. We did have a conversation where she had called me and said that I had stopped calling her and that it was my responsibility to call her. And I said, no, I don't think that's correct. I think that it's a parent's responsibility to reach out to their child. And then when I found out about my dad, it was too much. I haven't spoken to her since I found out about my dad.
And what did you find out about your dad?
So my daughter wanted to do DNA because she started to get more into her mom's side of the family's history, and they have a really kind of a proud heritage going back to Mexico. And she's like, I want to know about you. So she asked if we could do DNA. And so I ordered the little DNA kit and we did our little swab and mailed it in. And you enter it into a database. And I had this young man named Mark reach out to me from Florida. And he said, I'm very into our family's history and our family tree. And he goes, you just appeared. And he goes, we were very closely related. And I just want to know who you are. And it turned out the best that I can put it together is that my biological mother was on a road trip to go see her dying mother in 1976. She slept with a handsome college professor named Alexander Taylor, and then perhaps told her boyfriend at the time that the child was his. So my dad was an author, poet, social activist, and Alexander Sandy Taylor. He taught English Lit at East Connecticut State. He's much older than my mother. He even guarded Dr. Martin Luther King with a pistol back during the civil rights era. He was like a really cool dude. There's like a park named after him, and he helped.
Where's the park?
So it's in Willimantic, Connecticut. I still haven't gone. I haven't been able to bring myself to. I have one of his books on my shelf, and it's so emotional for me that I'll crack it open once in a while and just read one poem, and then I'll put it away and just kind of. I got to touch that with very gently and just from time to time.
Just
And
feel a piece of him, huh?
yeah, because too much can be too much. But he passed away before I could meet him, and when the last time I spoke to my mother, I confronted her about him, and she had known the whole time. So she let me go into foster care, and the thing that she said to me after I got her to admit it is she said, "You're not gonna tell anybody, are you?" And it's just too if she wasn't my mom, I could speak with her and be able to have some detached conversation, but it's just too painful for me. And I don't
Yeah.
hate her. I'm not even mad at her. It's just too painful to think about all the stuff that I went through. And then my brother that I just met telling me there's no way he would have left you there. He would have walked through fire to come and get you. He was not perfect by any means, but he would not have left you there. I mean, he helped so many people, and to find out he had a son, he would have gone and got me. And, maybe some people might say, oh, that's just some fairy tale magical thinking, whatever. Whether he would or wouldn't have, the fact that I got robbed, never got to meet him or know him or shake his hand. I'm not angry. I do not seek revenge or hold resentment, but it's just too hard to have contact with my mom. It's
Knowing
too
that she knew the
difficult.
whole time and knowing that she let you go into foster care
Yeah.
when this decent guy was out there who was an alternative. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I couldn't help thinking to myself when you said that she said, "You're not going to tell anybody, are you?" I was thinking to myself, she wants you to protect her, but did she protect you? You know what I mean? Like, you want me to protect you now, but you didn't protect me then. It's a
Well, and
weird.
I have compassion and stuff
Sure.
for her. I mean, I'm not going to blast her name everywhere. And I have no vendetta against her, or I wish her all the best in a happy life and wellness and wholeness and healing and love and safety. I just can't. I just can't be around.
I wish you all that for her from somebody else. You just can't do it. I get it. And that's admirable, actually, in my opinion, that you can hold yourself to a place of positivity that doesn't allow you to have resentment, seek vendettas, blast her name out. You know what I mean? Like, it takes a lot of, you have to be an adult. You got to be mature. You got to be secure in who you are to realize that was the situation that it was at the time. There's nothing I can do about it now. It's only going to eat me inside to be angry about it. And you held anger for a long, you had anger for a long time just by virtue of having to survive on your own. I would imagine you've had enough. Like, it's not getting you anywhere. It's time to be positive and enjoy your life, right?
Well, yeah. And also, separation from a parent is excruciating.
Yes.
Whether or not it's abusive, or there's a tremendous amount of guilt that I feel and like longing. But, my life is healthy today. There's healthy people allowed in my life, and there's no drama allowed in my life, at least as little as possible, right? There's
Yeah.
always going to be some little levels of stuff going on, but my life is peaceful. And I don't care who you are, people who are chaos bringers into my life, into my inner sanctuary of peace, protection, safety, success, positivity. There's chaos all over the world. Like, my inner circle does not contain chaos.
That's
Not
great.
any longer.
I love it. I love it. That's really cool, Forrest. So, and you know what? I just want to go back to what your brother said. I like that you were able to take from what he knew about his own dad's character enough to know that this was a guy. It was a good guy. That
Mhm.
from the parenting you had before, at least part of your parenting could have been from a decent dude. So I just
Yeah.
wanted to underscore that piece that your brother was able to give you some piece of positivity from, where you come from. That's really interesting.
Well, and to find out that my dad's an author in the middle of writing a book is pretty cool too, right?
That's really cool. And
It
when
was
was your book when you found out?
yeah,
Right.
I wrote the last couple pages of my book in my brother's house after I'd slept in my grandfather's bed, right? That my grandfather had passed his bed to my dad, and then my dad passed it to my brother. And that my brother just told me that. He goes, "Yeah, that bed you slept in last night, man, that's belonged to your grandfather." And it was so weird having someone say your grandfather. It's still like, I was, wow, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Uh,
So you met your brother,
my brother and sisters, yeah.
and
And
how are things with them?
they're great. It's a little awkward for me, but we keep in contact on a regular basis, and they're so kind, and they're inclusive and nice, and they're a little older. So my brother Peter had always thought he was the youngest, and they
Yeah.
joke about that. They're like, "Oh, we got a baby brother."
Yeah.
Because my oldest sister, I think, is as old as my mom. My dad was, I guess, a '70s ladies man. Yes.
Yeah. That's
But
cool that they're inclusive, though. That's really awesome.
yeah,
Cool,
and
man.
they,
Forrest, what's the name of the book for everybody who wants to read?
it's called Angel Blue: A Song of Redemption. And
Song of Redemption. All
yeah,
right. Cool, man. Thank you so much for being here, Forrest. This was really great. I appreciate it.
yeah. Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate
No
it.
problem, dude. I appreciate you being here. Take care. All the best. All right.
You too. Bye.
Hey, it's me. Hearing Forrest's journey, you can really appreciate how far he's come, from instability and abuse to brotherhood, healing, and purpose. His life started in chaos, but Forrest carved a path that allowed him to reclaim his story on his own terms. He found peace through service, art, and ultimately through connection, both to the brothers he fought beside and the family he later discovered. That moment when Forrest realized that his biological father might have come for him if he had only known, that really stood out to me. It's a reminder that sometimes our stories are shaped not just by the choices other people made, like his mother, but by the truth he never had the chance to know about his birth father. And while Forrest was robbed of a reunion with his father, he found a new family, a legacy, and a way forward that honors the strength inside him. I'm Damon Davis, and I hope you found something in Forrest's journey that inspired you, validates your feelings about wanting to search, or motivates you to have the strength along your journey to learn, who am I really?
Thanks, man. It was okay.
Yeah, it was
I
great.
didn't mean to tear up. I still get emotional when I talk about certain parts.
I told my adoption story yesterday at lunch, and I was crying. I mean, you can't control it. You think about certain pieces sometimes, tears, right? These are very real emotions. These are real life circumstances that happen to us all. You don't have to apologize, man. This is real shit.